Hey, everybody. So good to see you guys. Thank you guys for spending the month with me. This has been just absolutely terrific. I have enjoyed you guys so much. And I so look forward to doing this with you. And thank you for your patience and understanding tonight. And let's get going. We went through up and through the ninth step. And one thing that we didn't, and it was brought out to me last week, that we didn't do the ninth step promises, and I think we should. Page 83, the last paragraph. This is, right after, remember we talked about last week, the amends process in the 1940s. There were 4 ways that amends were done. And this is based on the interviews that Wally, all the people he could identify who got sober in the 1940s, and as many as he could find who were sponsored by Dr. Bob. And to a person, that's the way. Those 4 ways are the ways that amends were done in the 1940s. And doing my research in other fellowships, I've come to realize that that's the same 4 methods that are used in NA. Al-Anon cites those 4 ways. ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. I could go on and on and on mentioning the other fellowships that also highlight those 4. What's interesting is that, that has sort of been a little bit lost. And I think one of the reasons is the 12 and 12. If you read the essay that was written on the ninth step in the 12 and 12, it only talks about direct amends. The whole essay is just about direct. It has one little veiled sort of statement about living amends, but the other 2, amends in kind and letters, are not mentioned in the 12 and 12. And I think that's, which was published in the 1950s. And I think that's one of the reasons why we focus, I think, in AA so much on direct amends and don't really look sometimes. I think this is true of my home group. Don't talk much about it, about the other ways of making amends. Nonetheless, that brings us to page 83. And if you've got your highlighter out and you're ready to finish with me, if we are painstaking, right here at bottom of page 83, last paragraph, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see that our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I love that. That is just, as a favorite of so many of us in reading those. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. It was pointed out one time that the promises have been my promises even when I was drinking. After a few cocktails, I would not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. And after a few more cocktails, I could comprehend the word serenity and know peace. I probably couldn't spell it, but I could comprehend it, and then after a few more cocktails, I come to realize that alcohol was doing for me what I could not do for myself. I'm just saying. So we've, if you're like me, we've had these promises going on for us for a long, long time. It's just now we're choosing a loving higher power, and I love that. So if you skip up that little paragraph although you could highlight this too, many of us do say this, are these extravagant promises? We don't think so. They are being fulfilled among us. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. And make a little notation there in your big book right there, because now the book is going to shift gears, and we're going to launch right in immediately after the promises are read. We launch right into step 10. And it says, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. I love that line. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. Now, if you notice, when we get to step 10, the tone and the pace of the steps changes. If you guys have noticed that as we've been highlighting passages together, the way the big book has woven the steps together has been language. Remember, it has said next, at once, and we waste no time until you get to step 10. At step 10, the authors put the brakes on and they say, now at this point, this is not an overnight matter. We're going to be doing this for our lifetime. So the whole tone and the pace of the steps has changed. You know, we in the traditions of the 1940s would move a newcomer into step 9 as quickly as possible. And then 10, 11, and 12 were the steps that we were going to be doing forever. Now, I put a little mark in my book. Actually, I changed colors in my highlighter, but you can put a little indicator, because this next half a paragraph is going to tell us exactly how to work a 10th step. There is more content in this next half a paragraph than I think anywhere else in the big book. So it says next, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. I like to point out that there we go, bringing up the 4th step inventory again. That is word for word right out of the 4th step inventory. And I also noticed the next part, it doesn't say if these crop up, it says when. So we are guaranteed right there that these are gonna crop up, that I have got a propensity to be selfish. I have a propensity to be dishonest. I have a propensity to have resentments, and I certainly have fear. And it's not if these crop up, it's gonna be when. Now, it's going to give us 4 ways to work our 10th step. So it says, when these crop up, put a little number 1, get your pen and put a little bitty number 1 right there. When these crop up, the very first thing we do is we ask God at once to remove them. Now, we know that anytime in the big book it says ask, you and I know it means pray. So the very, very first thing we do when we feel ourselves being resentful, dishonest, selfish, or afraid, we pause once we identify and we ask God to remove them. Put a little number 2. Put a little bitty number 2 right there. The second thing we do is discuss them with someone immediately. Isn't that the same thing as saying share? Or share from the heart? If you'll remember way back when we were doing the first step, we repeated this, I believe, in step 9. We talked about the 3 things we do, and if we'll do these 3 things, our life will change. The first one is we pray on our knees, ask God to keep us sober. If you'll recall, the second thing is we attend those meetings, and the third thing is we share from the heart. And so here in the 10th step, it's already highlighted that we are to Number one, pray, ask God to remember. Number two, discuss or share them with someone immediately. Put a little number three there and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. If we haven't harmed anyone, there's no need to make amends. However, if we feel like that we've got an amends that needs to be made as a result of any of this, we should do so immediately if we've harmed someone, and then put a little number four there. And then the fourth thing we do to work our 10th step, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. My partner, Lauren, pointed out to me something I hadn't noticed about that. She said, it doesn't say run out and help somebody. It just says turn our thoughts to someone we could help. I thought that was really interesting. I puzzled on that a bit, and I thought, well, the way that I turn my thoughts to someone else is I pick up the phone and I reach out to one of the people from my home group or one of my recovery friends, and I'll just go down the list, start calling people and just check on them. Hey, I was just making some phone calls. I just wanted to check on you and see how you were doing. And as we all know, that anytime we reach out to someone else, we are just instantly jettisoned out of our problems, and now we're talking to someone else. And then the very last line of how to do a 10th step, it tells us what our code is. And it says, love and tolerance of others is our code. That little half a paragraph, I'm telling you what, that is a design for a living. That's the steps wrapped up right there. And that is really 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly how we do our 10th step. I tell my sponsees is, anytime that we're feeling troubled, I don't know about you guys, but in Mississippi, we have these dump trucks that run all over the place. I don't know if I told you this before, but we got these dump trucks. And if you're not careful, these dump trucks will just change lanes. I drive the Sober Mobile. It's the world's smallest Honda. It's like beer cans pounded flat, wrapped around a motorcycle or something. Anyway, and these big old dump trucks will just change lanes and move me right off the road. And I have this propensity that when that happens, I want to chase them. Some are sicker than others. I have learned, though, in recovery, and y'all can write this down, I no longer chase people past my exit. It's a new rule with me, when it's time to take my exit, I will, it's progress, not perfection. But nonetheless, I just, when I feel these things, I get irritated in traffic or something. It is a good time for me to pause and pray. I had to do it today on the way to take little Alex to kindergarten. Pause and pray, because these people, I'm sure they're in a hurry for real good reason. And so anyway, and then to reach out to people, and then to make some phone calls and check on people. The next part of the big book is the 10th step promises. Now, I love me some 9th step promises, but these 10th step promises are something, this is a miracle, what we're getting ready to read now. So right now, here is the 10th step promises. It says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. Thank goodness. We will be seldom interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. We will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We haven't even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. Underline that. I think that's the greatest promise in the whole big book. You know, the thing that deadgum near killed me, the thing that ruined a career, you know, I was multiple marriages, the thing that just tried to destroy me and the people that loved me, that thing has been removed. And here's what that says after that: it does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And how do we keep in fit spiritual condition? Well, we do those 10 steps. You know, we pray, we share from the heart, we attend those meetings. And if we do that, our lives get better. Our lives get better. I love that. That to me is that's to me the single greatest promise in the entire big book. So I'm going to ask you the 10-step question. Who's willing to practice their 10th step? Give me a show of hands. There you go. There you go. Excellent. Excellent, everybody. That's great. Well, the big book moves us right into step 11. So if you look down 2 lines from the bottom of the page, it's going to say, start highlighting with step 11, 2 lines from the bottom of page 85. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions, and boy, they do. There are more instructions in the book on step 11, maybe than any other step. I mean, they tell us what to do at night, during the day, and in the morning, which pretty much covers my experience. So it starts the very next line. It tells us what to do at night. So keep highlighting with me. It says, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? There we go again. That is the only thing in the big book that is repeated word for word 3 times. 4th step, 10th step, 11th step. I think they're drilling it into me that I have a problem with resentfulness. I have a problem being selfish. I have a problem with dishonesty and fear. It says, do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? What were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? And then if you'll jump down to the next paragraph, now it's going to tell us what to do in the morning. It says, on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. I want you to underline that. Ask God to direct our thinking. That's going to be the hallmark of the way the 11th step was practiced in the 1940s. And that's going to be the material that Reed was so gracious to post for us, the link to, on how we're going to do. I'm going to take you through exactly how we do an 11-step guidance meeting, and the way it was done in the 1940s and kind of where it came from. And those of you that travel around and you go to I love to go to meetings in different cities, you know, on occasion you'll find an 11-step guidance meeting. The formats are slightly different in different places, but it is one of the most powerful sharing times. Reed and I are members of TPAS, Treatment Professionals and Alumni Services. And every time I attend a TPAS collaborative, I'm always making sure that I'm helping to lead the 11-step guidance meetings in the morning. And it's a hallmark of my time at those meetings. So I'm going to go ahead. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish all of the highlighted passages for step 11, and then we'll also move right into step 12. And then I'm going to come back at the end and I'm going to break down for you how the 11-step guidance meeting. Is that okay with everybody if I did it that way? So we underlined, we asked God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. And then jump down to the next paragraph. It says, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here, we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. I'm at the top of 87. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We may pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. Now, jump down to the very last 3 lines from the bottom. And this is a next passage that was used in the 1940s to take newcomers through the steps. It says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves that we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But that is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. So, who is willing to practice your 11th step on a daily basis? Give me that show of hands and a wave. Congratulations, everybody. So this is going to move us right into step 12 and chapter 7, starting on page 89. It's in its entirety is devoted to working with others. And it starts with the very, very first line. And the first 2 paragraphs are wonderful. And it starts with, highlight with me, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. I remember there was a time I was about a year sober, and God was kind of peeling me like an onion. My wife had left me. My career had vanished. I was going to a ton of meetings, and I was giving out my phone number and greeting people at my sponsor's suggestion. We had run through the steps really fast, but I felt like something was missing. You know, I wasn't really sponsoring anybody. You know, I had tried, you know, and something was sort of missing. And I told my sponsor one time, I apologize if I said this already, but my sponsor one time, I went to him and I said, I've been giving out my phone number and I've met with a couple of guys and, nobody seems to, be coming back or what. And I'm just not sure if I'm being effective or whatever. And my sponsor looked at me and he said, let me ask you a question. He said, are you sober? I said, well, yeah, I'm sober. He says, then your sponsorship is 100% effective. I mean, we do this for us to stay sober. Well, I was in this place, I was about a year sober and I was stuck. Have you ever been in a position in your recovery where you were stark raving sober? I was stark raving sober. I mean, and I just felt something was missing. And I got back on my knees and I said, God, I need you all over again in a new big way. I mean, I need you like the time when I was on the floor of a treatment center begging you to save me. I need that again, but I don't know what to do. I said, would you please just, send me something. I need a way to help people and I don't know how to do it. Well, after about a week of that, I had this notion I needed to go back to the treatment center where I had been. And there had been this volunteer who had come on the weekends and was really helpful to me. And so I called the treatment center up and I asked if I could come do that, there. And they said, no. They said, no. They said, we don't do that anymore. And I went, okay, okay. Well, then about a week after that, I got a call from a lady that I knew in AA, and she said, would you come with me? She says, I do this volunteer work at this men's transitional housing place. Would you come and tell your story? And I said, I certainly will. And I went there and I fell in love. I fell in love with those men. And they called it the last stop before prison or death. And I started showing up there. We started a couple of AA meetings in that place. We did cookouts and just started hanging out with the men. And they taught me how to show up in love and service. And many of those men all these years later are still sober today, and I still see them. And it's just wonderful. God showed up. God showed up when I needed him most because I was really worried about my recovery. And if you ever get to a place in your recovery that you feel like you're stuck, I highly recommend let's get back on our knees and start over. And just ask the God that got us sober in the beginning to show up all over again. And my experience is he does. He shows up. It's funny. I met with a sponsee this morning. We were talking about that very, very thing. So back on page 89 with your highlighter, the second paragraph, it says, life will take on new meaning, to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. And that is so true. I mean, every word of that. I mean, I've met the most unbelievable people, in the room. We are a group that wouldn't ordinarily mix, I can tell you. But I have the stories and the people that have shared and the way their experiences have touched me have been life-changing for me. And I love the people. Now, I want you to put at the bottom of the page, just put page 100, because we're going to jump a bunch of pages. So you're going to have the newcomer jump over from page 89 over to page 100. And so jump over with me. And we're going to talk about sponsorship, about working with newcomers. And I think, now you all have to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think too much of the time we think of sponsorship as a top-down experience. like, the notion of somebody that knows a whole bunch of stuff is imparting wisdom to somebody that doesn't know much. And, maybe in the beginning, certainly we're going to be responsible for one and one thing only, and that is to take the person through the steps. And we're just kind of going through what we went through. But I tend to think in terms of sponsor, sponsee as being fellow travelers, as being, I'm on a journey. I'm on a spiritual journey. I'm going to tell you, I'm just scratching the surface. And so I just asked the newcomer to join me. We're going to talk in just a second about sharing and all. And we're going to talk about sharing guidance. I'm going to be jumping back to that. But with me and the newcomers, we share guidance that we're getting and doing our 11 step. And I'm gonna talk to you about that in just a second. And we just, and this is what the big book points to me, page 100, second paragraph. Listen to this as not a top-down experience. It says, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. I've seen that happen over and over again. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. At the bottom of the page, I want you to write 102, page 102, and that's where we're going to jump to next. Page 102, and over on page 102, we're going to get a new job description. This is the next to the last paragraph, page 102, and highlight with me, it says your job now is to be at a place where you can be of maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand. Keep on the firing line of life with these motives, and God will keep you unharmed. At the bottom of the page, write 164. We're going to jump to page 164, and we're going to look at the wonderful summation that you guys know. Page 164, this is in the third paragraph. The third paragraph begins with this wonderful statement of humility. If I had written all of this, I think I might have done the summation saying, well, now I've showed you everything you need to do. Now you just need to do it. But listen to this humility in the third paragraph, page 164. Highlight with me. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. Isn't that beautiful? We realize we know only a little. Isn't that great? God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. So we don't have all the answers. We're living it. Ask him in your morning meditation, which you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you have in God. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. At the bottom of the page, write page 25. At the bottom of the page, write page 25. The Alkies they put I love us. We're so great. They put the ending at the beginning. And the ending at the beginning, when you read it, it doesn't make any sense to you about being rocketed into I think I told you guys earlier, my sponsor gave me the book, told me to read the book. I read the book. I got to page 25. It talked about being rocketed into the fourth dimensions of existence. And I called my sponsor and I said, that book you gave me, the people that wrote it were high. I already know how to be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, and I don't need your little book to show me how. Thanks for sharing. And your meetings are adorable, and the way you pass the basket and throw little dollar bills in, that's pretty cute too. Y'all got a lot to learn about growing an organization, I can tell you. But they buried the lead. So page 25, flip back with me to 25, and you'll see that the end is at the beginning. What were they thinking? Page 25, second paragraph, right at the top, highlight with me, there is a solution. Almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. Step one. You'll see steps all the way through this thing. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit. There it is, simple. It's a simple program, not complicated. Simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do for ourselves. Guys, welcome to the fourth dimension of existence. And thank you for taking the steps with me. Who's willing to share this message with somebody as soon as you're asked? Give me a wave. I'm so proud of you guys for doing this. I'm just so happy, that you've done this. Now, I want to go back for a second. We've got a little extra time, and I want to go back, and I wish we could have, I couldn't really figure out how we could do this together, and really make this 11-step guidance meeting work. I mean, we kind of could do it, but it would be really awkward for those who, are watching this later. I don't know. So the way this thing was done, so the 11-step guidance came about. If you'll remember, back in the summer in 1935, Bill Wilson was on a failed business trip to Akron, Ohio. He meets Dr. Bob. He's trying to take over a tool and die company. It's not going well. His reputation as an alcoholic had preceded him. The people were not listening to what he was saying, and the business was falling apart. And that's why he was in the hotel ready to, take a drink, because he was just, so despondent about, the business failing. And so you guys know the rest. He goes to the phone, and by some miracle, he's able to connect with Dr. Bob. And the reality of that is that at the end of that, with Bill with no money, failed business venture, Ann Smith and Dr. Bob invited him to stay with them in their home on Ardmore Street in Akron, Ohio. Now, there was one stipulation that Ann had for him staying with them, And that was that they were going to do guidance meetings every morning, which was a tradition from the Oxford group. And the way they did it was they sat around, and this has been told and recorded by Smitty, Dr. Bob's son who passed, but there are recordings of him and his observations of watching them. So they would sit around this little kitchen table, and first thing in the morning, they would read something inspirational, something out of the Bible, typically is what they read. And then they had pencil and paper, and they would do 5 minutes of quiet. And in the 5 minutes of quiet, they would write. Now, at the beginning, they would write down. Remember that line in the 11th step I had you underline, God, please direct my thinking. So they would write down, God, please direct my thinking. And then they would meditate and write. They would just be quiet for 5 minutes, and they would write, just free form writing, whatever thoughts came to their head. They would not edit. They would not judge their thoughts. There were no good thoughts, bad thoughts. They just wrote down. I mean, and sometimes, when I do this, it can be shopping lists, but sometimes it can be people's names that come to me that I write down for no particular reason, which is always a call to me to reach out to someone. But they just free form and then write. And then at the end of the writing, Anne would ask if anybody wanted an extra minute to finish up thoughts, which many times happens. And so they would finish writing, and then they would go around that little circle and they would share exactly what they wrote. They wouldn't share about what they wrote. They would share the exact words. And after they went around that circle, then they would share what they heard. And that's called three-way prayer. Now, this is all outlined in the book that I showed you guys early on, the book by Wally Patton, How to Listen to God. And this is the way he found out about the 11-step guidance meetings, and how it was all done in those early days. But that became a tradition, and it is still being practiced around the country today. And you can find 11-step guidance meetings. And the way we do it is that we will, in the meeting room, we'll start with an opening. Many of the ways we just start any general 12-step meeting with the readings and what have you. And then we'll have 5 minutes of quiet. Everybody just writes. And then we go around the circle and everyone shares what they wrote. But while people are sharing, you are instructed to write down what you hear, because I have experienced this so many times. Many times what people hear is not exactly what was said. Sometimes we hear what we need to hear. Sometimes a theme emerges. I will never forget, I was with Wally actually at T-Pass in Malibu, and we were doing a morning guidance, and I wrote down when I did my writing, I wrote down my sponsor, who is Brian, and for some reason I wrote down Brian O. I don't know why I put O, his initial of his last name, down there, but I did this time. And so we went around the circle, and the last thing I had written down was Brian O. And so, Wally asked everybody what you heard. And this lady next to me, she was the last one to share. She said, well, I don't know who your Brian O is, but my Brian O is my brother. And he died of this disease. And I came here to this retreat thinking this would be my last retreat, because I was pretty much convinced myself that I was gonna, leave the industry. And if I couldn't help my brother, how could I possibly help anybody, out? And she was wearing a baseball cap. She took the cap off. She said, this is his hat. and I brought it here to go. He loved California and he loved the beach. And I came all the way out here, and the last thing I was going to do was go and bury his hat in the sand out on Malibu Beach. And Wally doesn't even remember doing this, but I watched. He stood up, he walked across, he bent down, he hugged the woman, and he said, "Don't you realize that your brother is here with us right now?" And she started crying. I started crying. Wally started crying. And we all went to the beach and we all buried that hat in the sand and we prayed with her. And she had such a profound experience from that guidance meeting. She invited Wally then to come to the treatment center where she worked, and he did back to basics and he started the guidance meeting there. And my understanding is they're still doing it there to this day. But it also is something that we do individually with sponsees. So as I do my morning quiet and I do my writing, when something profound comes up, I can call and I can say, "Hey, I just wanted you to know you came up in my morning guidance. And I just wanted you to know that I just wanted to reach out to you and tell you that I love you. And I was thinking about you." And sometimes that will open the door for something that really needs to be said. I had a sponsee that was doing that. He had a man's name came up that he hadn't seen in years, used to come to meetings. He said, "I called the guy up and the man was a little bit angry when he answered the phone." He said, "Why are you calling me? How did you know I was about to take a drink, after 10 years of sobriety?" And my sponsee said, "Oh, I didn't know anything about that. I was just calling to tell you I loved you, and you came up in my morning guidance. That's all." So we're dealing with spiritual energies, and the 11-step guidance meeting is one way that we do this. We do it individually. We do it in a group. It's very powerful when we do it in a group. And who's to say, maybe one day when my travels get me anywhere near where you guys are, we could all get together and do a 11-step guidance meeting together. It would be something, be one of the great joys of my life, I can tell you. I wanted to wrap this up and just see if there were any questions or anything, but mostly, even if there isn't, mostly I wanted to tell you, I have watched your faces through this whole thing. And I have watched you chuckle with me with your mute on, which is the spiritual foundation of all of our Zoom meetings. Thank you, Reed. I'm going to spread that around. It's not really, I give somebody credit, 4 times, and then I take ownership of it. So I'll say, "There's my friend Reed says this," but then, I'll start forgetting that. But I just want to say, I have watched you guys react. I have watched your heads down. I have watched you highlighting and writing notes and doing all the stuff that we do in this. And it has been the joy of my month to watch you guys take this whole thing so seriously and to be so interactive and just being here. Even in the last one, when we're running 30 minutes behind, here you are showing up and doing the deal. So I'm proud of you. I love you guys so much. And I've been just tickled to death to be able to be with you this whole month. And Reed, thank you. And anybody that had anything to do with letting me do this, I want to pass along my gratitude for being asked to be a part of this. You guys have something really special going on. And I'm grateful to have had this little smidgen of a role in it. So I'm going to sit back. I'm going to see if there's any questions, comments, observations, just anything. Yeah. Healthy boundaries. That's, you scratch an addict and you'll find a codependent. Did y'all know that? Did you know that underneath every addict is a codependent, just like dying to get out? So how is this healthy boundaries? Addicts don't know a lot about healthy boundaries. Your job now is to be a place where, this is what she's talking about, 102. Your job now is to be in a place where you can be of maximum helpfulness to others. So never hesitate to go anywhere. If you can be helpful, you should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth. Keep on the firing line of life and God will keep you unharmed. You know, if I'd have written that passage, I would say one thing I would have thrown in there is, and never go alone. If you're going to go to the most sordid spot on earth, go with an AA, buddy, go with your sponsor, don't go alone. But how do you do, the idea of healthy boundaries and all of that? I think I'll tell you how it happened for me. I was, I may have told you this. I apologize if I did. I was working with a guy, and the guy just wasn't following directions. He wasn't drinking, but he wasn't really following directions. He was kind of doing it his way and stuff. And he was great. And I went to my sponsor and I said, this guy's got a couple of problems that he's not looking at, and I'm afraid he's going to drink. And my sponsor said, well, two things. Number one, he said, well, he's not in enough pain. He said, when he's in enough pain, he'll take action on these things. And the second thing he said was, I think you ought to go to Al-Anon. He told me, my sponsor sent me to Al-Anon. And I want you to know that I personally believe that everybody who is a sponsor should go to Al-Anon. Just stir in one meeting a week, make it an Al-Anon meeting or a double winter meeting, because I am just as powerless over what other people, of what your disease does to you, as I am what my disease does, it wants to do to me, and these guys, again, occasionally one of these guys will try to dance me around the dance floor. I'll watch his disease dancing him around the dance floor, and then I get involved in it, and then his disease tries to dance me around the dance floor, and I don't dance anymore, So, so this thing of healthy boundaries is something we have to practice. And Al-Anon is what helps me. That's what helps me practice healthy boundaries. Thank you. Yeah, well, listen, I think it's the new way, baby. I've sponsored guys on Zoom. I've sponsored guys from out of state. Listen to this one. This is probably heresy I'm getting ready to say. Reed, you might want to cut off. I've sponsored guys in fellowships I don't attend because the steps are the same. I honestly, I'm not concerned with what brings us here. I'm concerned with how do we get out, right? So the steps are the steps, and I use the big book and take them through the 12 steps, whether I suffer from what they're suffering from or not, because the solution's the same. It's surrender, and then sharing and amends and guidance. It's, same thing. In the big scheme of things, if I could have a person, I think it's wonderful to have a physical person, to be able to share coffee and to go to meetings with the person, but if you can't have all that, then I think Zoom can work, but I think if you can have a real life sponsor to be there, I think that's a wonderful thing too. I think that God will provide us whatever I think what God wants for us to stay sober. I really believe that. And I think that if we are earnestly turning our thoughts to prayer and recovery, I think that God will provide us what we need. I don't think he ever puts us in a position where our circumstances are such that we can't stay sober, And so if it's in your best interest to have, and then you got to follow your heart. You'll know, you are smart. We are cagey, and you'll know if you're not being fed enough, if you're not on the right track. So I think, I think having a real live person you can sit with and have coffee with and do steps and meet with. And then, as you say, Deborah, my sponsor was a social. He went to all the meetings, and I just wanted to stop drinking. And I followed this guy around, and I couldn't believe how many, but the thing was, no matter where he went in town, everybody knew him, you know. And by following him around, it opened me up out of my isolation and was really beneficial to me. You keep fighting.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Oh man, everybody. What a great